Welcome back to another video in the FreeCAD series. Today we're going to design a mug. So I'm going to teach you how to design a mug from scratch in FreeCAD, and we're also going to put our name on it as well, so we'll have curved text on the side of the mug. Now what I will say is that if you want to follow the text part of this tutorial at the end, you will need to go and download FreeCAD 0.19. Now this isn't an official release yet, but I'll put a link in the description where you can go to the FreeCAD GitHub and you can download the developer version, which is version 0.19. All you need to do is come on here, scroll down, you'll see a bunch of different assets at the bottom. If you're on a Windows machine, you'll want to download this one here as a 7-zip file, and obviously if you're on a Mac or a Linux, you can download the other ones that you're going to need. Another thing I'll say is that if you've stumbled across this video and it's the first one of mine that you've seen, I highly recommend going back and watching the FreeCAD for Beginners series part 1 and 2, because that'll cover all the basics and get you up to speed with parametric modeling, which we'll be making use of in this tutorial. So let's get started and see what we can design. So we're going to create a new project. We're going to save it first of all, so we'll go to save. I'm just going to save mine as mug tutorial. We'll then come up to here, we'll create a new part, and inside of there we'll switch to the part design workbench. We'll create a new body inside of the part. We'll rename our part to mug. We'll rename our body to cup. And what we'll do now is create a brand new spreadsheet so that we can add in our parameters like we did in part 2 of the beginner series. So we'll switch workbenches, we'll go down to spreadsheet, come up to spreadsheet, create spreadsheet, and I'm going to go ahead and just add a bunch of these in, and I'll skip ahead the video so you can just copy them and follow along. If you don't know what I'm doing here, as I said, go back and watch FreeCAD for Beginners part 2 and you'll understand what I've done. Notice as well that in this particular case I left spreadsheet called spreadsheet and I didn't rename it to parameters. That's because there seems to be a bug in FreeCAD 0.19 where if you rename your spreadsheet, your parameters can't be found or they don't update properly. So we're just going to leave it as is. And remember, just to show you this one example, we have to activate our components. All the yellow ones are active and this one isn't active, so we're going to right click, properties, we're going to add our display unit, which is millimeters. Our alias is going to be handle diameter. We're just going to hit OK. That turns yellow, it's active, and it's good to go. So now we can close out of there. We can come back to our regular workspace by clicking the tab on the bottom. From here we can double click our body to make it active. We're going to go up and create a new sketch. We're going to select the XY plane because I like to work top down. We're going to hit OK, and this is where we can create the kind of base or the bottom circle of our mug. So we're going to go up, grab the circle tool here. We're going to use our center point as a reference as always, drag outwards, and now we're going to add one of our parameters as a constraint. So up on the constraints toolbar here, we're going to grab constrain an arc or circle, click the edge of our circle. It's going to pop up this little box, and remember here we're setting the radius, not the diameter. One of our parameters is the diameter, so all we have to do is half it. So we're going to go click this little button. We can start typing in here spreadsheet with a capital S, remember, dot mug diameter, and we're just going to divide it by 2 to get the radius. Hit OK. We have our constrained circle that's centered in the origin. The sketch will turn green and we're good. So we can close out here. We can just hit close. And now what we can do is we'll rename that sketch. So right click, rename. We're just going to call it base. From there, we can click the base sketch, come up to pad here on the toolbar. And remember, we're in the part design workspace. Click the pad button and you'll see we'll have a pad here. Now if we rotate around, in the top left there's a little toolbar that pops up. We currently set a length of 10 and we can increase it like this, but remember we have a parameter to use, so we'll click on that and we can just type in here spreadsheet dot mug height, hit OK, and that'll set that for us. We've got our mug height. We're going to hit OK, and now what we want to do is we want to create that cutout on the inside so that we have an actual mug shape and not just a cylinder. So to do this, once again make sure your body's active by double clicking on it, and you'll know because the body, the text will turn bold here. So you can see there it's not active. If I double click, it's active. And now we need to create a new sketch on the top face of this cylinder. So first we're going to select the top face, it'll highlight green, then create a new sketch. That'll put that sketch directly on top, you can see here. So we can come back to our top view by clicking the top cube in the bottom and the top right. From here we can add our next circle. If we go back to our spreadsheet, you can see here I added an inner diameter of 80, but we don't actually have to use that. I put it there just to show you this example. So if we go back to this, come back up to the circle tool on our sketch. Once again, we use the center point as a reference. Drag outwards, and this time we're going to use two parameters that we've already got. So we'll go back to our constrain an arc or a circle constraint. Click the edge again. Remember, we're setting the radius, so we have to click this little button. And we're going to do a little equation here, nothing too complicated, but let's open and close a set of brackets. So we're going to take the original radius of the mug, and we're going to use our mug thickness parameter to automatically create that inner radius. So what we can do is do Spreadsheet dot, do you want mug diameter, divide that by 2 inside the bracket so that we get that 45. Then we're just going to subtract. We'll create another set of brackets, and we'll do Spreadsheet dot mug thickness, and you can see it's subtracted that, and our result is now 37. So if we hit OK, OK again, you can see that's now set up for us. And if we go back to the spreadsheet, say we wanted to increase or decrease that, we can come back here, look at our mug thickness parameter, increase or decrease that, and it'll update the sketch for us. For now we're good, I'm happy with that. We can take a better look at it when it's in the 3D space. So what we'll do is update, close the sketch, and now we're going to rename this sketch here. We're going to rename it to cut, and we're going to select that cut sketch. Come up here to the pocket tool, and we're still in the part design workspace. We're going to select the pocket tool. That'll start to create a pocket for us. Now again, you can do this manually, but we're not going to do that. We'll use our parameter. Now for this, we already know the mug height. We have a parameter for that, so we'll do Spreadsheet dot mug height. Now this will create a hole from top to bottom, so it'll completely hollow out the mug, but we don't want to do that obviously. So we'll just do minus, we'll set a value. Let's say we want the bottom to be 5 millimeters thick, so we'll just put 5. That'll give us the result of 105 millimeters. Okay, and now if we rotate around, you can see we've created a cut almost to the bottom, but not quite. So we've got that 5 millimeter base thickness at the bottom, and that's exactly what we want. So now you can see we've got this nice shape with a nice hollowed out middle. This is technically a container now, a cup. So now we're going to do the fun part, which is adding the handle, and this is where we're going to learn some new stuff. So we'll hit OK, we'll close out of this. Now the next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to stay in the part design workspace, but we're going to talk about datum planes, commonly known as an offset plane in something like Fusion 360. And what these do is they allow you to sketch at an offset from the origin. So if I show you the origin here, if we go and click the origin, hit space, you can see all of our planes here intersect through the origin, right, the 0 point of the workspace. That's great, but sometimes you want to create a sketch that is slightly offset from the center. So if we want to create the handle here, for example, we don't want to sketch at the origin. We'll want to sketch kind of at the very edge of the mug, right? Because the handle's going to start from the edge, curl its way around. To do that, we can use a datum plane in FreeCAD. Now the datum plane tool is here. You'll see it. Remember, we're in part design. You'll see it here. It looks like a little rectangle, and it says create a new datum plane. So we can click on that, and then it's going to ask you to select a reference plane. Now we're going to put the handle here on the right hand side of the mug. So we're going to select our reference plane to be YZ plane. And notice what that does is it'll show you this brand new plane that we've created. In the tools here on the left, you will see we can move this plane around. If we go to the Z direction and play around with that, you can see that we can manipulate this plane and move it forwards or backwards. Now you might think this is a little confusing because the Z direction should be up, right? But these parameters always work in reference to the plane itself. So if you imagine, if you were looking at the plane from this orientation, like this, Z technically now would be up in this orientation, and that's just how it works. It's a little confusing at first because you'd think it'd follow the coordinates of the entire workspace, but just remember that you can figure out which one it is by just playing around to see which direction it moves. But we do want to move it in that Z direction. Again, here you might think, you know, I could manually Let's move this over, kind of eyeball it till we get to the edge of the mug. But we don't need to do that because we have parameters. We know the radius of this mug, of this cup. So we can just use that parameter to position the datum plane. So again here, this little button. All we need to enter in here, once again, Spreadsheet dot mug diameter. And we can divide by 2. We're going to put this whole thing in brackets just for now. You'll see why in a second. So we'll hit OK. I can see now if we rotate around that this has now moved to the very edge of the cylinder. Now when we create the handle, this will create a slight issue. The radius is obviously the very edge of the circle, and our handle is going to have a thickness. Now if we create a handle that starts from this plane, there's going to be a point here where it's not in contact with the mug, and that'll cause some issues when you try and extrude it or you try and merge the two bodies because they're not touching. So what we have to do in this case is move the plane slightly backwards so that all of it will be set inside the radius of this circle. So again, we'll put this in brackets, and we're just going to set, we'll do something like 2 millimeters, so we'll hit OK. And now you can see what I mean. So when we create a sketch now on this plane, the whole thing will be in contact with the mug itself, and we'll be able to extrude. And this will become clearer later on when we actually do it. So let's hit OK. We're happy with this. We're going to create a cross reference. Okay, we can hide the origin again, so we can come up here, hit space. We've hidden the origin, and now we have this plane that is slightly offset from the radius of our mug. Okay, so that's our datum plane added. Now what we need to do is just create a regular sketch. So we'll select our XY plane, come up to create a new sketch. Now this sketch is just going to be at the origin like this, and we're just going to sketch out the shape of our handle. So in this case we'll use a new tool again. We'll go up here and there's a tool called create an arc in the sketcher. We'll click on that. For now you can click anywhere, just click once, click a second time, and you can see you can create this arc. As I said, click anywhere for now just to get the arc, and then we'll use this and our parameters to position it and set the handle to be whatever size we want. So let's move it around a little bit. You can see we can move it. It's currently not constrained. You can still adjust it. But remember, we have our parameters that we can use. We can use our constraints again. So up here we'll grab our horizontal constraint tool, and we'll come back here. We'll click on one of the end points of our arc and our origin, and we're going to add a parameter. Now as I said before, we'll want this to be slightly inside the radius of our cup. So we'll go here, we'll do Spreadsheet dot mug diameter divided by 2, which gives us our radius of 45. And then we're going to subtract 2 just like we did before to bring it slightly inside. Hit OK, hit OK again. And you can see that's placed a point here for us. If we close the sketch for now just to hide the mug itself, so hit close, come back to pocket, hit space. We can hide the origin again as well, hit space. Now if we double click our sketch again, you can see that we can see our datum plane and the point that we've just added a constraint to, and they're aligned, which is good. So that's our first one. We'll go up again, grab our horizontal tool. We'll add another constraint to this second arc point. Select the origin again as a reference. We do the same thing, Spreadsheet dot mug diameter divide by 2, then we subtract 2 and we hit OK. Now we're going to have to do the same for the middle point here, because you can see we can still move it around and we can still affect the radius of that circle. So we'll do the same thing, horizontal tool, click the middle point, click our origin point, add the parameter, subtract 2 as we did before, hit OK, and there we go. That's our horizontal constraints added. Now you can see here if we try and move this around, we can't move it horizontally anymore, but we can move it vertically. To fix that we can use our vertical constraint, so we're going to click this one. Now this time we're going to select the 2 points at either end of the arc, so we'll click the first one, the second one, and remember we have a parameter for this, so we'll call Spreadsheet dot handle length. Hit OK. That sets our handle length, so we can no longer adjust the handle length, but again we can still move this around. So once again, let's just close the sketch out, come back to pad or pocket, hit space, come back to our sketch, and just to demonstrate this, what I want to show you here is that we can still move this around, right? Can't see our points anymore, but we can move it up and down. As I said before, we can use the power of parametric modeling to position this based on the height of our mug. So typically the handle would be centered based on the height of the mug, right? You'd want it to be in the middle. So we can do that using our parameters. So let's close, we'll hide our pocket again, just so it's not in the way of our sketch. Come to sketch here, we'll rename the sketch as well. We'll call it handle or handle 1. We'll double click it, we're back in here. Okay, so now what we'll do is grab our vertical constraint tool at the top. We'll select our bottom point here on the arc and our origin. This adds in a new constraint there. We can hit this button to add a parameter. And remember, we can use our parameters to create this. So we'll open and close some brackets. We'll do spreadsheet dot mug height minus spreadsheet dot handle length, and then outside the brackets we divide the whole thing by 2. Hit OK, OK again, and there we go. You can see our arc now has turned green, which means FreeCAD's happy. We can click update, close, and this time if we show our pocket again here, so we can click on it, hit space. We can also hide the datum plane for now because we don't need it. Just click space on that. If we come to our front view here, you can see now that our handle is centered very nicely on our mug, and this is exactly what we want. Next up, we're going to use our datum plane, so we'll come back to that on the part tree, hit space so it shows. We're actually going to hide the pocket again as well, so we're left with our datum plane and our handle arc. Now for this, we're going to click on our datum plane and create a brand new sketch. We're going to click that create sketch button. Notice that that's put us straight in here. So if we zoom in here, you can see very faintly there are 2 points that we used to create that arc for our handle. And we're going to kind of use these as a reference here to create the handle thickness, right? Because we're going to use this sketch and use a tool called the sweep tool to sweep this sketch along that arc to create the handle, which is a really great tool and I think you'll appreciate it. One thing I'll say about this sketch as well is that if we rotate it, it's important that we're working in this orientation where the handle is on the outside. So we want to work this way. So that's going to be on our left view here on the cube. So just keep note of that. Sometimes when you're doing stuff like this, it's actually easier to sketch at an angle like this. You can kind of see what you're doing. So what I'm going to do is create a brand new circle. We're going to place it on the vertical line at the origin here. So we're just going to click on this line. And you'll see that little symbol pop up there that is making the circle coincident to this line. So we'll click on it, just drag out for now. Then we'll go to our constraints tool up here, constrain an arc or a circle. Click the edge of the circle, select a parameter, and remember we have a parameter for this. So let's do spreadsheet dot handle diameter. Hit OK. Now set that for us. Now what we need to do is position this circle central with the line that we created here at the end of this arc. Now to do that, we're going to constrain it using the equation that we just used in the previous part of the video. So we can use the height of the mug and the height of the handle to determine where this position is going to be. So we'll grab our vertical constraints tool again, and sometimes FreeCAD can be funny with this, trying to select these points. Sometimes like this, it kind of won't let you select it until you're in the right position. So you can rotate around and try and get a different perspective on those points. We're going to click that. You can see there it let me select it from that angle. Same for the origin, we can zoom in, select that one. We are going to set a, we'll hit OK for now, come back out, move to our left view again. You can see now that we've set this as a parameter, but like I said, it can be tricky sometimes to select them depending on your perspective, which is a little weird, it's a little buggy, but once you've done it, it works. So notice again, we can't move this, which is good. So now we're going to go ahead, double click on that, and we'll set a parameter that we used before. So we'll open up brackets again. We'll do spreadsheet dot mug height. We'll subtract spreadsheet dot handle height or handle length. Then we'll divide the whole thing by 2. We'll hit OK. So if we hit close, come back to the model tab, you'll see what we've got is this. So if we look at this from this angle, you can see what I was talking about before, where we can use 2 separate sketches and the sweep tool to create a more complex shape. And typically this is how it's done in FreeCAD or any other CAD package, where if you want to create a more complex shape, usually you'll use multiple 2D sketches, so it's almost like 3D sketching. So let's go ahead and use the sweep tool. Make sure you're in the part design workbench, and as always make sure body 1 is active. That way any changes that you make, it'll all be nested inside of body 1 and it'll keep your workspace a lot cleaner. So let's go up to the toolbar here. Notice there are a bunch of yellow symbols and we want the 4th one across. It says sweep a selected sketch along a path or to other profiles. We're going to click on that. We'll see here on the left it's going to ask us to select a feature. Now we want feature 2, which is our circle that we created for the handle. We're going to select that, hit OK. Then it's going to ask us here to select an object or a path to sweep along. So hit this little button that says object. We're going to select our arc. Notice that it gives you a kind of preview of what you'll be creating. And you can see now that's swept our circle sketch all the way along that arc to create this handle shape. We'll hit OK. And there we go, we've now got a nice handle that is actually starting to look pretty good. So the next thing we can do to try and clean this up, I think, is we can try and fillet the edges here of our mug. So what I've done is I've gone and added an additional parameter here called mug fillet, and I've made that 3mm. And remember, you need to activate it. You can right click, properties, add your display unit, add your alias to match your label here, hit OK, and then we can use that in our design. So if we remember from our other lessons, if we come up here to part design workbench, hold down Control on the keyboard and select the edges that you want to fillet. We're going to fillet these two in this case. We're going to grab the fillet tool up here, and on the left, remember, you can see it's asking us for a radius. We'll hit that little parameter button. We'll type spreadsheet dot mug fillet. Okay, and notice what it's done there is it's filleted that top edge for us. And what we could also probably do is fillet this bottom edge of the cup here. So we could go ahead and create another fillet, or we can just add to the previous one. So over here on the part tree, if we double click on fillet, select add here, there's a button, and we just want to go and select that bottom outer edge, hit OK. And there we go, you can see it's also filleted that for us now as well. And now this is starting to look really clean. Now to make this look even better, I think what we could do is we could fillet this edge here where the handle meets the cup. If we go and zoom in, we're going to go and select this section here. So we'll go around, we'll select them all. There's 3 in total, I believe. So we've got this one and this one. Same on the bottom, come back around, select this one. So with those selected, once again, we're going to go and grab the fillet tool up the top. And we're not going to do a parameter for this one, we'll just eyeball it because this is unlikely to change. So I think we'll go with 3mm radius for that. We'll hit OK. And there we go. This is starting to look really good now. Another really useful tip for you is that you can change the color of your models inside of FreeCAD. So up here on the part tree where it says body 1, we're going to rename that first of all. So let's rename it to mug. Now if we right click on mug, click on appearance, we can click on shape color and you can select any color you want for your mug. So I'm going to go with red, hit OK, close. And there we go, we've now got a nice red mug inside of FreeCAD. Now here comes the really cool part where you see how awesome parametric modeling is. So let's say we've got this far and we're thinking, we might want to change it, I'm not quite happy with this. So let's click on spreadsheet. Let's change the diameter of the mug to, let's say 130. Hit tab on the keyboard to update. Come back and look at that, we've now got a massive mug. And notice how the handle and everything else is still in the correct position. And that's because we used our parameters wisely and everything is referencing these values. So it's just adjusting to itself and making your life a lot easier when you make these changes. So let's also try and increase the height of the mug. So let's go back in here. Let's make it 150. Tab, come back, and there we go. The changes have been made again. And notice this time how even though we changed the height, the handle is still centered. Everything's still in the correct position. We can also go and change the other stuff. So let's go to handle length. Let's try and make this 100. Hit tab, and there we go. Our handle length adjusted. The center position of the handle adjusted based on the handle length and the height of the mug. And we can even go ahead and change the thickness of the handle as well. So let's make that something like 15. This might be quite chunky. So that's quite a chunky handle and it doesn't quite look right. So let's go back. We can make this, let's try something like 11. Let's go back. There we go. So that's starting to look better. And also as well, we set a mug thickness. So if we wanted it to be a bit of a thicker mug, we can change that to 13, say. Come back. And again, there we go. So the outer edge has adjusted. We've got a much thicker mug. And everything is just so easy to change. It's intelligent. It's a great way to design. And I hope you can really see here why you need to be using parametric modeling. It just gets you designing things the correct way and saves you so much time when you want to make a change. So what I'll do now is I'll change all these back to what they were, because I actually measured up a mug that I have around the house. So it's kind of referenced to be a good scale. So I'm going to change this back to 90. We'll change this one back to 5 or 8, I believe it was. Mug height, I think we were at 110. We had 60 in here, 80 in there. Handle diameter was 10, I believe. Let's go back. Oh, we're missing one. Handle diameter was much lower than that. Let's try 8. There we go. So I'm happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to show you here is how you can really customize this and add some text to the front of it to make it your own. And you know, something like this you could 3D print. I don't know if I'd recommend drinking out of it, but you could definitely 3D print it and put it on the desk or something, even as like a pencil holder or pen pot or whatever. As I mentioned at the start of the video, to do this part of the tutorial, you will need to be using FreeCAD 0.19. The reason for that is because there's a new tool in FreeCAD 0.19 that isn't available in FreeCAD 0.18. So if you want to do this, make sure you update. And as I said, go and download that file that I showed you at the start of the video. Once you've downloaded it, you can extract it. Inside it, you don't even have to install. You just open the folder, go into the bin file, and if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see there's a FreeCAD.exe. You just run that and you're straight into the developer version of FreeCAD. So just like we did before, we're going to create another datum plane. So we're going to show the origin, and we're going to go up here to datum plane. Remember, we're going to select the XZ plane as a reference, since we're going to add the text to this side of the mug. Now in the bottom left, remember, you can adjust these, and we want to move it in the Z direction again. We're just going to move it until it's slightly in front of the mug, so we'll try something like 23. That's not quite enough. Let's try 30. So there we go. So we're around 50 mil, and you can see basically we're just on the front of the mug here so that we can create our text. So we'll hit OK, create a cross reference. Hit OK. On the front, just like we did in the previous tutorial where we created our own text on a plaque or on a block, we're going to go and switch workbenches to the draft workbench. We're going to select the ShapeString tool up here on the top. For now, we're just going to click anywhere on our plane. So we'll click once. We're going to enter text. I'm going to put my name in here, which is Gareth. I'm going to select a font file like I did in the previous video. So we're just going to use the Arial font for now. And then I'm just going to hit OK. And you can see there's some text popped up here. Now let's clean our workspace up a little bit. I'm going to hide the origin. I'm also going to hide the datum plane. So we'll double click our ShapeString once again. And down here, we're going to go to placement, position. And we're going to make the size a little bit bigger. So let's try 20. And there we go. Now for now, we're just going to eyeball this and move the position. So we'll make it, let's try something like 0. We're going to need to go back a little bit more. Currently positioned this at -40. We'll move it down on the Z as well. Let's try something like 50. So as I mentioned in the previous tutorial about text in FreeCAD, it's really not great. And in terms of constraints and parametric modeling, we can't really use that with text. It's the infrastructure for it just isn't there. We had to actually go and manually measure the text to position it. So we're not going to make use of parametric modeling for our text, just because you can't really. It's not really possible. So just as an example, let's say you create your mug. What I'd recommend, change all the parameters so that you're happy with it. Then if you want to add the text, I do that last, because if you make any changes afterwards, you'll have to readjust your text. So I've just positioned mine here roughly using these XYZ coordinates under the position tab here. Positioned it roughly where I want it to be, and from there we can then just use a projection tool to put that onto our text. So once we've done that, we can rotate around. You can see the position of it. I'm pretty happy with that. So the next thing we'll do, come back to the draft workspace, click on your ShapeString, and there's a button here that says downgrade the selected objects into simpler shapes. So all this will do is it'll turn our text into a bunch of faces, which makes projecting it onto the cup a lot easier. So we'll click this button, and notice what that's done here is it's just created a load of faces here for us. So what we'll do then, switch to the part workspace, then we'll select our faces here, and notice as we hover over them, each face just represents a different letter. So we'll select from there down to here, then up here on the top right, there's a little blue symbol here that says make a union of several shapes. And if you can't see it for whatever reason, you might need to click a drop down to see it, but it'll be there. So select that one. What that'll do is it'll say, do you want to continue? Yes. And what that does is it creates a fusion for us that basically merges all those different faces into one face. One other thing worth noting as well, after you've been in the draft workspace, you'll notice this grid appear around your object. Sometimes it doesn't go away, so make sure you select the draft workspace again. Click one of the little drop downs here near the blue icons, click this grid icon, and it'll get rid of it for you. That's just really handy to know because it can be quite annoying. So let's go back to the part workspace. Now the tool we'll be using here in the part workspace is called the projection tool. It's brand new and it's actually pretty good. Now it's important before you use this tool that you orient your perspective in the correct position, because basically the way this tool works is it'll project directly behind whatever you're trying to project. So for example, if we go to the front view, we want my text here to be projected straight backwards onto the cup. Now if we did the projection at this angle, it would project it slightly downward toward the cup at an angle. So make sure you have your perspective set like this so that it projects straight back onto wherever you want to project it to. So once you have it ready, come up here, grab the project tool. It's going to say select a projection surface. We're going to select the surface of the mug. Then we're going to click add face. We're going to go ahead, zoom in and click on each of the faces here that we generated previously, which will be each letter of your text. And then if we rotate around using shift and right click, we can rotate. Notice what that's done there, and we can adjust the extrude height here on the menu on the left. So we're going to go back down. We'll make it something like 2 millimeters. Hit OK. We can hide our fusion, and what we're left with then is a mug with some nice text on it, and it looks pretty cool. So by default, when you do this projection, the color is green, but remember we know how to change this. So we can go to projection, right click, appearance. Let's make it white just for this. Hit OK. We can also adjust the line color. We'll make that white as well. Close. And there we have it, guys. We have a nice red mug inside a FreeCAD designed from scratch with some nice custom text on the front. You can obviously change the text to wherever you want. You don't even have to add text to it. You can actually just project a logo onto it or something like that. That will be something I show in a future video where I show you how you can import logos and SVG files into FreeCAD and create models. So again, if you wanted to 3D print, you just select everything, go to File, Export, save it as an STL, import it into your slicer, and you're good to go. So that's it for this one. I hope you're learning. I hope you appreciate these videos. And there are going to be more kind of videos like this where we design things, as I feel like you tend to learn a lot more when you're doing something practical. If you decide to do this and 3D print it, drop me a message on Instagram. I'd love to see your 3D prints. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.